Candy flipping refers to mixing LSD, acid, and MDMA, Molly, both Schedule I substances in the United States. While some people report having great experiences with this combo, the two substances are generally better off apart. Here's what you need to know before you consider mixing LSD and MDMA. I've already taken them, is it an emergency? You probably don't need to hightail it to the hospital unless you or someone else is experiencing symptoms that might suggest an overdose. These include nausea and vomiting, drowsiness, loss of consciousness, trouble breathing, difficulty walking, agitation, aggression or violence, enlarged pupils, tremors, convulsions, hallucinations or delusions. Otherwise, your best bet is to find a safe place where you can ride it out, which can take anywhere from a couple of hours to over 12. Try to find a sober friend who can stay with you and make sure you stay properly hydrated. Which one is used first? Traditionally, candy flipping begins with taking LSD and following it with MDMA around 4 hours later. This timeline allows you to feel the peak effects of LSD before adding the feel-good vibes of Molly. In case you're new to all this, MDMA is also called Molly, ecstasy, and X. What are the effects of mixing them? It's hard to say. Their effects and their intensity can be different every time you take them, even if you're taking the exact same dose. Candy flipping gives you the effects of both LSD and MDMA. Some older research trusted source suggests that the combo results in very intense MDMA-like experience. People who've actually done it, however, paint a different picture. Some say you get an experience that's equal parts of the good effects of both substances. Others say that sometimes MDMA takes you right back into the LSD trip, which can be good or bad. LSD is a powerful hallucinogenic drug that can make you feel either amazing or miserable. It's pretty impossible to say beforehand whether you'll have a good or bad trip. The most common effects of LSD are euphoria, hallucinations, including seeing, hearing, and smelling things that aren't real, distorted sense of time and environment, intensified feelings, rapid mood swings, paranoia, confusion, fear, dizziness. The most common effects of MDMA are feelings of closeness and affection, increased empathy, elevated mood and energy, increased sensitivity to touch, visual distortion, muscle cramping, teeth clenching, chill, sweating, increase in body temperature, nausea. How long does the whole thing last? Research on this combo is very limited and anything that's available is from the 80s and 90s when candy flipping became popular. This makes it hard to say what the exact effects are and how long they last. LSD kicks in within 20 to 90 minutes of taking it and effects can last as long as 12 hours, sometimes even longer. MDMA, which is usually taken several hours after LSD, typically kicks in within 20 to 70 minutes and lasts from 3 to 6 hours. Based on these time frames, the whole candy flipping experience can last anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. Is there a come down? Both LSD and MDMA can lead to unpleasant come down. The come down from LSD usually lasts around 24 hours and can include feelings of depression, panic, and paranoia. Some people report having lingering come-down symptoms for days and even months after. The come-down from MDMA can be a bit rougher. Most people experience a strong urge to take another dose as the effects begin to wear off. Taking LSD and MDMA together can result in more intense come-down effects, such as trouble concentrating, insomnia, memory issues, decreased appetite, irritability, reduced interest in or pleasure from sex, aggression. What are the risks? Candy flipping appears to increase the potency of MDMA, which increases your risk of experiencing negative, and potentially dangerous, effects. In addition to all the effects discussed above, there are two other big ones to know about if you're considering candy flipping. Hydration issues. LSD can enhance the effects of MDMA. This can increase your risk of dehydration and heat stroke, both of which have been linked to most MDMA-related deaths. To avoid this, you'll need to stay hydrated and avoid too much physical activity. However, water intoxication is another risk with MDMA. This happens when you drink too much water too quickly. MDMA can significantly raise your body temperature, especially if you're dancing, leading some people to overdo it with the water. Bad trip. Having a bad trip is always a risk when it comes to taking LSD. Adding MDMA into the equation can make the experience more intense and longer lasting. Your risk of having a bad trip might also be greater if you have an underlying mental health condition. Safety tips. It's best to avoid mixing LSD and MDMA since there are so many unknowns. If you're going to Candyflip, though, there are a few important things you can do to reduce your risk of some negative effects. Before using either or both substances, know the signs of an overdose. If you're going to use substances or be around people who do, you need to know how to spot the signs of an adverse reaction or overdose. Call 911 if you or someone has a high body temperature, fast or irregular heart rate, trouble breathing, extreme aggression or paranoia. Seizures and loss of consciousness are also possible. Test your drugs. You should always test your drugs to make sure what you've been given isn't counterfeit or contaminated. Drug test kits can be purchased online and are often sold at music festivals. Start low, go slow. This is always good advice. Your risk of a bad trip or serious effects is increased at higher doses. Sticking to a low dose is key, especially if you've never candy-flipped before. Make sure you give that low dose enough time to kick in before taking more. Have a trip sitter. A trip sitter is someone you trust, preferably a sober someone, who will look out for you while you're partying. Ideally, they should know how to spot the signs of trouble in case things go south. Pick your environment. Since the effects can be unpredictable and hallucinations are a good possibility, you should be somewhere safe and familiar should you find yourself in trouble. Stay hydrated. Drink plenty of water before, during, and after to avoid heat exhaustion and dehydration. This will also make you less likely to consume a bunch of water in one sitting, putting you at risk of water intoxication. The bottom line: mixing LSD and MDMA can enhance the effects, both positive and negative, of MDMA, increasing your risk of uncomfortable and potentially dangerous side effects. It can also make an LSD trip feel longer and more intense, which isn't always a good thing. Your best bet is to keep them separated. If you're concerned about substance use, talk to your healthcare provider if you feel comfortable doing so. Patient confidentiality laws prevent them from reporting this information to law enforcement. Call SPS's National Helpline at 800-622-4357, HELP. Find a support group through the Support Group Project. Adrienne Santos Longhurst is a freelance writer and author who has written extensively on all things health and lifestyle for more than a decade. When she's not holed up in her writing shed researching an article or off interviewing health professionals, she can be found frolicking around her beach town with husband and dogs in tow or splashing about the lake trying to master the stand-up paddle board.